Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls 3 PvP and another weapon showcase. This time we're using the Carthus Shotel, which has alternating horizontal slashing R1s. Its R2s are going to be angled vertical slashes and its running attack will be a vertical slash. When two-handed it is more of the same, with the R1s again being horizontal slashes, the R2s again being angled, and the running attack again being a straight up vertical slash. The skill on this weapon is Spin Slash, which does exactly what you would think, and it can be continued by pressing R2. So as far as this weapon is concerned in PvP, it's actually not bad. Yes, in a way it is outclassed by another curved sword being the Carthus Curved Sword, and yes, the Carthus Curved Sword does have a higher damage output. Yes, the Carthus Curved Sword does have slightly higher bleed damage per hit. However, the Carthus Curved Sword in comparison to the Carthus Shotel weighs more by a decent amount. I believe it's a difference of 0.25 weight, which is fair. That's definitely worth considering. And then on top of that, the Carthus Shotel has the ability to pierce shields, which the other one does not. So there's some benefit to it nonetheless. Now, there are a few issues with it, and I'll get into that a little bit later on, but let's get started with the basics. The Carthus Shotel requires 12 strength and 19 dexterity in order to wield. When upgraded along the standard path uninfused, it has a physical base damage of 212, a D scaling in strength, and a B scaling in dexterity, and it deals 34 bleed per hit. Now, with mine, as you guys might have guessed, it is infused with Refined, which is pretty much a standard thing for my build, just because that almost always ends up being a little bit better. Now, in this case, Refined will drop its attack, its physical base damage rather, down to 190. It'll give it a double C scaling, and it will also drop the bleed per hit down from 34 to 33, which is negligible. It doesn't really matter much at all, so we're not going to worry about that. So, this weapon, getting started with the pros of it, of course it does have pretty good damage output. It is the third most damaging curved sword for my build at the very least, and it's just behind, ever so slightly behind, the Pontiff curved sword. So basically the only difference there is 4 attack rating, which again is pretty negligible. I'd say that the two are pretty much on par with each other, especially considering that this one causes bleed and it can pierce shields. Again, two other very nice pros. Yes, the Pontiff has longer reach, but for what it is, you know, I'd say they're pretty much even. Now, with this weapon right here, I am not overly fond of its R2 attacks. I feel like the range on them is very short. Because that range does feel very short, it makes them a little bit awkward to use. You need to be in very close to your opponent, and that does make sense because they are going to pierce shields, so that's perfectly fine. However, they could be better. They could be a little bit longer reaching in my opinion. That would be a big improvement to them. I mean, it makes sense for them to be the way that they are, but as far as having them actually be useful, it doesn't really work out too terribly well. So, it is what it is. Other things with the weapon, other things that I'm not necessarily fond of. In a way, I think it's a bit of a pro that it has the standard kick for its kick. That lets you guard break people a bit more easily. It's got some good uses. You can actually kick someone and then get a regular R1 on them, and it has good timing for that, and that works well. But on the other hand, with this weapon, you really need to focus on getting a lot of hits quickly so you can build up bleed. And because of that, I feel like this weapon in particular would be a little bit better if it didn't have the kick and it did have the backflip spin. That would be really useful because then you could get a regular R1, another R1, and then the backflip. Get 3 hits, it gives you distance, and then you're all set to restart. And that's a really good thing to have on curved swords. It's a really good combo that this weapon doesn't have the ability to do because it just has a regular kick. And yes, the regular kick does make up for that in its own right, but again, if we were focusing on purely getting bleed to build up with the weapon, it would be improved greatly by having the ability to do the backflip spin. So, it is what it is. Other things with the weapon, a few other pros that it has. It does, of course, do decent damage through shields. In case I haven't gone over that, it is okay damage. It's not the greatest. Really, I think the main benefit is if you're fighting someone and they're using an ultra, not an ultra, but a great shield. If they're using a great shield and they're turtling, you won't really bounce off of their shield ever, so it doesn't put you into a very vulnerable position, and you can build up bleed on top of that, which lets you get some good stuff going on, lets you bleed them out, and basically everything works out very well. This is a really good go-to weapon if you're fighting against a turtle. Like, this is just, in my opinion, one of the best weapons for that. So, I like this weapon a lot, just for the sake of being able to do that alone. Overall, though, it's not a bad weapon. It's not the greatest curved sword in the world, but it is good at what it does. It gets the job done. And I had a good time with it. It's one of my regular weapons that I go for, and it's always kind of fun to use, so that's basically all I've got for this video. Not a whole lot else to say. There is one fight left after this one, so stick around and watch that if you want. If not, well, then don't. Simple as that. Either way though, guys, I hope you all have enjoyed this video, found it helpful in one way or another. Please like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff, and I will see you guys next time.